Hi, thanks for joining us today. Today we're talking about how do you know when it's time to move? Let's dive in.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Katie Umland. Presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2-comma life.
So not just when to move, but maybe when to move in retirement, when you get a little older, kids are out of the house.
And where to move to and how do you...
What are you moving to?
Or from.
There's a lot to talk about.
Well, yeah, and I think that, it comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes. We have some clients that as they think about retirement, even when they're younger, they're like, man, when we hit retirement, I'm selling the big house and we're going to downsize. And
I don't want to deal with raking leaves and.
Yeah. Well, and they almost think like, and I'm going to have a windfall. I'm going to make all this money on when I downsize. And it's just so funny that never happens. Never.
Why not?
Well, yeah, because so I'm downsizing, but now that I have this, when I had my first house, I built it on a budget, or I bought it on a budget. I had young kids. And so now that I'm moving,
now you want the finer things in life.
I want the 12-foot ceilings, and I want the Sub-Zero fridge, and I want the go down
granite
the list.
And a completely tiled in shower.
Absolutely, and I don't. If I'm doing that on the inside, I don't want to walk outside and not have
nice
a patio that's dialed in with the a fireplace outside or whatever it is. You go down that list, and
so it might be smaller, but it's typically upgraded from.
It usually is. Yeah,
that makes sense.
For example, we had one client that what they found was as they were selling the big house, going into a townhouse. Everybody wants a townhouse.
Yeah.
Everybody wants single story. Everybody wants one step. Like all that kind of stuff. And so even if it's not, I'm getting upgrades in the finishes and that kind of stuff, which it was a beautiful home. But even if it's not that, what it ends up being is supply and demand, type of stuff. And so this idea that, hey, I'm going to sell out of the big house, downsize and pocket a bunch of cash just usually isn't the outcome that people think.
Well, and I feel like sometimes by the time you get to that point, your house is paid off. So that's another reason maybe people think like,
oh yeah, that I'll have all this money that I can have. Well, and the other thing that's funny with that too is, most of the time your house when you go to sell it probably needs some work. It needs a little TLC. Got
neglected
some of the ages showing on it a little bit, and so I think all of that goes into that.
That maybe plays into the decision too. Kind of like we were just talking about with your office. It's either time to update your current home, and you put the money there. Or time to sell and do something else.
Yeah. And what we find that sometimes is that a lot of times people think, I'm going to move to where the kids are. Very rarely does that work well. Because the kids are maybe going to move again.
Still deciding. They're still making their way.
And so that whole decision around when do we move? How do we move? Where do we move? Really becomes harder than sometimes people think when they hit retirement age. And I think even about Sarah and I don't know that she'll ever want to sell the house that we're in.
Sounds good. And then when it comes down to packing everything up and
like that's where Timmy fell down the stairs and chipped his tooth or whatever it is. I don't think Timmy ever chipped his tooth. If you see a jack-o'-lantern looking kid, that's mine. But like it's that kind of stuff. And there's something about you can only go home to your home, like as a kid. Like if we moved, I think about Mom and Al, they've got a beautiful home. Doesn't feel like you're going home. It feels like you're going to Mom's house, and which is fine. It's all good. But I think there's something to that nostalgia that would keep her wanting to, and me too. But and
more for Sarah, like she wants that feeling for her kids. Like your kids might not have that same, yes, they want to come home, but they might not have that same.
It might not be as big of a,
but for her, she's the mom. That's her identity. Yep. And so that's hard to kind of give up sometimes.
To. Yeah. Well, and then too, I think about it. And, as I think about like even where we're at this stage of life, the question for us also is, do we upgrade this house? And what I mean by that is it seems so dumb. I never would have thought this. But now that we have all the kids that are like kind of on their own, they're not really in the area currently. Sarah's like, well, maybe we should finish the basement. We've never had a finished basement. It's always just been a store place, a place to store things. She's like, maybe we should make it like a suite down there and a bathroom. I'm like, this is dumb. We have less people in the house and we're adding square footage. Yeah. But yet, to her point, I mean, it makes sense. Like, if we want the kids to be able to come home and spend several days with us, whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or just because, to let them have their own space where they can feel comfortable is probably the right thing to do. And so it's not a straightforward decision.
And it's like different stages, even like you're clearly not retired, but you're still in that same spot of what do we do now? Do we downsize? Do we increase size or do we move? And so you're in that position now, but in 20 years, you're going to be in that position again. And it's going to be a different situation. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's probably, so in my mind, I think for Sarah and I, we've always had that when we get to that empty nest stage, the place where maybe I'm not retired, but business isn't demanding every day type of time for me, that we would probably have a place for winter and a place for summer. It would be a place that was big enough.
Sarah just stays in the summer all the time, and you go back and forth.
Exactly. But then as we unwrap that, we start running into the exact same things that I'm running into the house that we have now. Where, okay, if we're going to do that, we want a place that's big enough that can accommodate everybody to come and spend time and enjoy it and that kind of stuff, which now all of a sudden that's a whole different.
And your house is updated. Like it is, you do have those upgrades. So your next house certainly is going to have those. Oh. So now you're having two of the house that you have.
Yes, no, exactly, Katie. And really, I think that if you talk to Sarah now, and acting like it's all her. It's not all her. It's me too. But I mean, every time you build a house, and even after you update it, you're still like, I would do this. I would do that.
It's a never ending.
And so really what we start to see is that as clients start to retire and start thinking about retirement, those decisions aren't as straightforward as they would think. And then to your point, you make it now, but that again is not your permanent decision. At some point, you're going to make the next decision around, okay, we have 16 stairs in our house.
Right.
Do I really want to do 16 stairs?
Up one way. You also have a basement.
We also have the basement, which now is getting finished and having a...
Yes, right. You have 32 stairs.
Yes. And so it's like, do I really want to do those every day? Which I think for Sarah and I think that
it'll be a long time.
It'll be a very... Well, and even when it gets to be too hard, like
she's still going to do it.
We're going to do it. Like, I could already picture her telling me, no, you're walking the stairs.
Yes.
And
also I need a piggyback ride.
Yes. Every so often. And so I think that when we start looking at that, so that's one phase. Then you go to the, is it time for me to downsize, get the ranch home? But then I think ultimately a lot of times you start thinking, when do I go to the retirement village, or when do I go to the even if my health is failing, assisted living type of a deal.
And I think of also like Alex's grandma lives in assisted living, but she lives in the part that isn't assisted.
Yep.
And so like that's another option. Like, okay, she currently lives in an assisted living facility where it could be an easy transition if she does want to go to assisted. Yeah. So she's currently living, in the independent portion. Yep. But a transition would be really easy to that. Well, so that's another.
And I think that's the, when you start looking at it. So if I could map that out for somebody, I see that really their moves come in stages. And those stages usually correspond with where are they physically with where's their family. And so I think that like for Sarah and I'll use us as that example. I think we probably stay in a bigger home longer than we normally would have, probably until we get to like towards the end of that time period. End of that time period being our health starting to cause us to need to make a change, because I don't see a time when we're not going to want to be able to have all of the kids home. But I think when we do sell the bigger home, if the kids are in the area, I could see us very easily selling, downsizing, and almost like mom's situation where she has the great big middle area where everybody can gather, have Thanksgiving dinner, but then she and Al have their wing where they have their own bedroom. And then she has a separate wing where there's another bathroom
for guests.
Stuff for guests. And so there's that kind of transition. And then ultimately, I think that as people get into maybe their mid 80s, early to mid 80s, that's the time when you start looking at, let's find a facility, I say facility, organization maybe is a better choice of words, where I can have the independent living. Maybe I live in a condo on that property or a townhouse on that property. But like Alex's grandma, if our health fails or if one of us dies, then we can transition easily into that assisted living.
And I think it's kind of nice and to have an option like that, because it's also, she does have the option to go to, she calls it the big house for dinner.
Yep.
Or, she could have, it's kind of like a mix. You can kind of make your own, choose your own journey a little bit. Where she's living independently, but still has some options of, she gets her hair done at the big house. She goes there for dinners occasionally. She can go and like play the games or whatever,
for sure,
but then still go back home.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's funny. What we see a lot. So I guess let's talk through the different stages. One of the things that we tell people all the time is be very careful moving and following the kids, because they're going to move. You're not going to be as plugged into their lives as you think. I think about mom. Mom lives 4 blocks from me, and I see her still at Thanksgiving and Christmas, right. And every so often we'll go out to dinner type of stuff. It's not like we're there all the time. But the other part to that is that you have to think about where you're living and what you're doing as a lifestyle decision. It is not a financial decision. So I think about a lot of times the clients that come in that say, is now the right time to sell my house? Oh, should I try to time the housing market to go buy this? And, oh, well, what's the resale value going to be on this house if I buy it, type of stuff. And those are good questions, but that's not why you live in a house. Mm-hmm. You live in a house to support the lifestyle that you want. So it's easy for me to sit here and say, I should not finish my basement because I'm not going to get the value out of that when I resell it. And who knows when that's going to be. But instead, I should look at it and say, no, the lifestyle
what value I want?
Exactly. And how do I create that value?
To work for you. Not try to make your house work for your financial resale.
Yeah, I'm not doing that for, it's not a money decision. This is a lifestyle decision. How do I want to live? And it's the same thing then as people start to think about those retirement communities. When you're 50, if I told you that you can go somewhere where you can have drinks with your friends on Wednesdays, they will plan outings for you to go on. You can have all of your meals prepared for you. They'll come in and clean your room. You would think it was a cruise or a vacation or
all inclusive.
Like right? Yeah, exactly. But for some reason, when you attach assisted living facility to that, people start getting wonky in how they think about it. But when you think about it from a lifestyle perspective, the social aspect of that, way better than living
on your own, not seeing anybody.
Exactly. As a spouse, thinking about my spouse, if I'm not here, having a community that they're plugged into, not having to worry about, changing the light bulb at 85 or whatever it is, I
wonder if there's studies, I'm sure there's studies on it, but what those outcomes are, people who live independently, but really probably shouldn't.
Yep.
Versus somebody who lives in an assisted living.
Well, isolation is the biggest thing that hits people as they. Well,
COVID was,
proved that.
Proved that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
for young kids all the way to adults.
All the way through. Yeah. That's just a basic human need. And they have the same thing as people age. What happens is it's kind of gradual. They don't realize that they're not getting out quite as much, or it's they get up and it's oh,
I don't want
it hurts too much. Takes too much energy, whatever. It's too much work to go out. And all of a sudden they start getting more and more isolated, where sometimes having that community, even if it is having just the big house, right? Where I can walk up and see my friends when I want to. And I think about Grandma Becker all the time with that. You're probably younger, so didn't witness that transition. But I remember when she lived in her house in Beecher, her health started to kind of fail a little bit. And so mom and dad built that addition on her house. And I remember as a kid, Grandma would tell mom, my legs feel like they got lead in them. I just can't keep them. My legs feel like they got lead in them. Well, ultimately it ended up being Parkinson's. And as mom and dad built that addition, sell Grandma's house in Beecher, build this addition, they live out in the country, which you would think it's very similar to her roots. She lived on the property that the house was on when she had her kids, all that stuff. And the addition was perfect. It had her bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living area.
It was a full house.
Full house.
Yep.
A separate entranceway so her brothers and sisters could just come and visit whenever they wanted, just separated by a door, right? And you saw Grandma's health continue to decline. And what it was, when she was in Beecher, she could look out her window and see her neighbors, kind of walk out every so often and talk to a neighbor. In Moni, where mom worked, dad worked, and she's out in the country looking at cornfields. That's pretty isolated. And so we saw her health continue to decline. And I remember when we were looking for assisted living facilities, or the family was, I wasn't involved in it, but when they were looking at assisted living facilities for her, I remember Dad and I talking and really feeling like Grandma maybe had 6 months because she had declined so much. And then she moves into Sunrise and becomes their longest living resident 13 years later, passing away, because there was something about knocking on the door. Hey, Florence, let's go play dominoes. Hey, Florence, let's go to dinner. I remember the folks at the facility telling Mom that she had to talk to Grandma because I talked about going up those 16 stairs at our house. The doctor told Grandma to kind of help her stay off her decline a little bit. Walking would help. And so she was walking the stairs relentlessly up and down, up and down, up and down, trying to make sure that she could stay as strong as possible. But that's 13 years. That meant every one of my kids knew great Grandma Becker, knew that you got to know her really well as you and Mom went to visit her all the time. Where on that path that she was on in isolation, that would not have been the case. She would have not had those 13 years. And so it's like there are times, and God points them out to you. Like if you listen, what typically happens is you start thinking, maybe I should move. What about this? And everybody goes through virtually the same process. It starts working on you. You put it off, you don't. And then eventually you get to a point where it's time. And I know it's time. And what usually happens is when the time is right, it works easy. When it ain't right, God puts up all kinds of roadblocks and it just doesn't flow right. And that's true in a lot of decisions, but especially as people start thinking about where do I move and how do I move in retirement?
So you said it shouldn't be a financial decision. It should just be making it work for you. But is there anything that people should consider with finances?
Yeah, 1,000%. So this is an area that I talk a little bit about it in the book when it comes out, but I try to have this conversation with clients. There are two types of people. There are the types of people that budget. This is the category I fall into. I think that budgeting is an income problem, meaning if I only had more income, I wouldn't have to worry about any of this stuff. There are other people that think budgeting is an expense problem, where they're like, I don't spend anything and I got plenty of money.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is the people that are like me can rationalize what I'm going to spend money on. So I could very easily say, well, my house is a core. I have to have a house.
Yeah.
I can't get away with that. And it's a lifestyle thing. So, I'll add this and I'll add this. And next thing you know, I'm broke because I overspent, justifying it in my mind that this is something that is good for me, versus the person that's on the opposite side that should really have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house, and they're living in a 1-bedroom apartment because they don't want to spend the money to do that. Right. And so it's finding that balance. It's not so much about, am I going to get a return on this house? Am I going to get my money back? That kind of stuff. Not for your primary residence. Like if you're talking about a lake house, you're talking about vacation home, those absolutely do with more of a money mindset.
Sure.
But your everyday house, it is, what do I need to make sure that I'm living within my budget so I'm not overspending, but also I'm spending enough that I have the lifestyle that I want. And who cares if you make money, break even, or even lose a little bit of money on that house? What you're doing is you're buying that experience.
That's your life.
Your
house is your life
every single day.
Yeah.
And so the way I like to think about it is, if I told you could never go on another vacation again, when does it ever make sense to spend money to go on a vacation? It doesn't. Financially, you're losing out. But all of the experiences that you have are well worth it. And the fact that you're going to talk about when you and Alex were in Mexico and you couldn't do anything after 7:00 because you had a single room and you had to put Dylan down,
right,
and you had to sit there in the dark from 7 p.m. on. Just talk about that forever. You'll tell Dylan about that. Well worth spending the money. Same thing when it comes to your house. It's the experience. It's your everyday life that you're buying So from a financial perspective, that's not the decision tree. The decision tree is what serves us best and what's going to give us the life that we want. Now let me do that within my budget, as opposed to trying to say I'm going to make a bunch of money doing this.
And it has nothing to do with like a tax incentive or like
those are all secondary.
Secondary.
That is all like if you start making decisions that way, you're letting the tail wag the dog.
Okay.
To the point where there are some clients that we recommend to them that they rent.
Okay.
And people are like, how could you justify renting? Like, don't you always want to own? Don't you want to? Yes, I can sit down with pen and paper and map out why owning you'll be financially better off. This is a single person, it happens to be a female, who is not handy, doesn't like to do anything. She likes having people around, likes the security of having somebody around, likes to know that when something breaks, she just picks up the phone and calls somebody.
Yep.
Travels a ton for work, so she can lock her door and walk away and not ever worry about it. Like,
again,
there's this whole
making
list
those
of
social
things.
choices before strictly financial.
Exactly. And so then when you go pen to paper, I might be able to map out where owning would make more sense for her. But when you put all the other considerations down, it's just
not worth it.
It's not worth it. Same thing with going out to eat. There's probably never a time when I can justify going out to eat financially. I'm always going to spend more money. The cocktail I have at dinner is going to be more expensive than the cocktail I make at home. Mm-hmm. But I want to. That's an enjoyable. I do it for the experience. And your home is the experience that you live day in and day out, 24/7. So get that right and let the money part. Then we'll look and say, okay, well, how can I have my home and get a tax incentive for doing it? Or how can I have my home and try to make money at it while I'm here?
Let's make the decision first and then figure out the secondary pieces.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think about that too, even with cars. You drive a different car than we drive. We've had some of the same needs. I don't have those anymore, but you're like, I need little kid car seats. I need all that stuff. Well, you could go to the base model in some terrible color that they'll sell to you at a bargain, but that's not what you identify with, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. Whenever you make those, it's not only a financial decision. It has to be who you are.
I'm not a minivan mom.
No, ever.
Although people keep telling me, and like, so I did just recently see a commercial for a minivan, and I was like, okay, that does look awesome.
Well, you know what's so funny? So we were in seeing Maddie down in New Orleans. I think that's where we were, and had rented a car. Oh no, it's when we went to we were out in Montana this summer, and one of the vehicles we rented was a minivan. I had a minivan and I had an SUV for the family, and everybody's like, I don't want the minivan. Who wants the minivan? Those are ugly. Like, whatever. Because Sarah's the same as you. Sarah's like, has never had a minivan, not going to do it. By the end of the trip, the kids were like, this minivan's pretty cool. I could see out the windows and like, they're like all kinds of stuff. And I say kids, and my kids are adults now, but it's just funny. Like they had kind of done a 180, like, oh, maybe we should look at a minivan.
Like, I don't want to test drive one.
No, because you might like it.
I might like it.
Yeah. Sorry, we don't mean to bash all you minivan lovers, but yeah, no, Sarah was the same way. She was like, no,
I'm scared I will identify with the minivan, and then I'm going to have to come to terms with the minivan chose me.
Yes,
I don't know that I'm okay with it.
And once you do that, there's no turning back.
There's no turning back.
No. Yeah, so I think that as you think about your decisions and say, when is it time to move? There will be things that will point out to you it's time, like kids moving, like I can't get up and down the stairs as much, like I don't enjoy doing the maintaining of the big house. Don't plan on it though as part of your retirement plan, because chances are when you sell the house, you're not going to have the windfall that you might be thinking you're going to have. As your health starts to fail, don't rule out retirement communities. Retirement communities today are not what they were even 20 years ago, and it's way different. It's a lifestyle choice. It's not anything negative or what have you.
We've done a couple episodes long time ago, maybe 2 years ago at Smith Crossing.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're interested in, that's a retirement facility, like they have several different options, several different communities around the area. maybe go check those out.
Well, they're called lifestyle communities now, where you can start. I could buy an independent home there, and then they guarantee that I'll be there for the rest of my life, no matter what happens to me from a health perspective
or a financially
perspective. I'm there. It's not prison. You can leave it, but they do promise that. And so, absolutely check it out.
Okay.
I think we're good.
I guess that's it.
Yeah.
How was we just finished Thanksgiving, so this is probably come out after Thanksgiving, but you just had all the kids home.
Outstanding.
For Thanksgiving.
It was outstanding.
It's so nice.
It is. We had, so Sarah, we were talking about this. It's kind of appropriate we're doing this. I told you we're thinking about redoing the basement.
Yeah.
Not seriously. It's been mentioned. But we are doing the bedrooms. So all the kids now, we're in that phase of life where the kids moved out. Now it's time to turn them into guest bedrooms so they all feel comfortable. We had Maddie. They still have their loft beds when they were younger. So Maddie hates sleeping in a loft bed. I was going to
say, she's hated it since you bought it.
Yeah. That's what she says. She loved it when she was little. Now she complains about it.
10-year-old doesn't want a loft bed? I know.
But I guess when you're 21, almost 20 or 22 now, it's not as cool. But so she's sleeping on a mattress on the floor because she took it off the loft bed. Lily and Andrew are sleeping on the pull-out couch that goes to the middle, and and so we're in the process of kind of revamping those rooms, and it'll be better for them. But it was awesome having them home. What was even better about Thanksgiving was got to see aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff that we don't always get to see. So
that's nice.
And how did the kids like their Thanksgiving? You guys were good. Down at Alex's sisters?
Yeah, this is the first year we went to Champaign for a few days for Thanksgiving, so we didn't get to see our family, which was a shift for me, but it was nice. They have Alex's sister has a big dog and no kids, so for us to come with our 2 kids, it was everybody adjusted.
Yeah, dog included.
Yeah. The dog was more afraid of the kids than the kids was afraid of the dog. But it was. Well,
because
really
those kids get a hold of his tail and his ears and everything else. I'd be afraid of them kids too.
I know, and Quinny loved the dog maybe a little too much. So no, it was very good. A little bit different, but it was nice to kick off the Christmas season.
Yeah. Well, and here we filmed just south of Chicago, so we're in full winter.
Oh man, it has been
now.
Super cold.
Hopefully you're somewhere warm. We're hoping we can get somewhere warm this wintertime and enjoy it. So
awesome. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Head to the website pv-wp.com for more resources.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Katie Umland. Presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2 life. Learn more at pv-wp.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Retirement Readiness Podcast on your preferred podcast platform.